some lessons that you think people can learn from your life and what you've gone through?
So the biggest one is choice.
Yes.
You have choice, and taking choice creates more abundance and power in your life. I think there's no such thing as selfish self-care. Like, that word is just so ugly that just like giving to yourself is not an ugly thing.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing, and it takes a lot of practice, and especially as women, it's really easy to not give to ourselves and nourish ourselves. But the more you practice it, the easier it gets, and it's beautiful. Like, you should always fight for you.
Absolutely. What are some things that you do to practice self-care?
So I just wrote like a blog post about this, how when people ask me this question for a long time, I felt like, oh my God, this is like such a hard question. But I think self-care is anything that nourishes you. So it can absolutely be bought, and it cannot be bought, as long as it's like fueling yourself. So for me, like something like making the bed or giving my dog a snuggle is self-care, and I take baths, and I read books, and cooking is a huge way for me to have self-care, but also setting boundaries and asking for what I need, and showing up for my business, and showing up for me, and paying my bills because I have my own money and my own freedom. Like,
Yes.
that is all self-care.
Yes, yes, yes. How do you know when it's self-care? Because, for instance, you said cooking, and for me, cooking is a chore. So how does one know? Well, no, but like you said that with passion, like that's something that actually you see as self-care. So for the people listening, we have people listening right now live. How do you know? What's the feeling you get so that you know that what you're doing is self-care?
It fuels you. It nourishes you. It makes you feel more connected and passionate.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I was trying to think of what my list would be. Cooking was not on my list though.
Well, for me, there's different types of cooking. There's like cooking because I want to do it, and then there's cooking because I have to do it.
I have a friend who's amazing at cooking, and she loves it, and her cooking is so good. I am low key jealous of her in that arena, but some people just certain thing cleaning for some people is self care. Um, so that's interesting. I go back and forth with um, my tallies of what that means. But the one that always stays is a really long shower. I always joke, like, I wish I could just live in my shower. Like, if I could just work like waterproof and shower, I would just be, I just
Awesome.
love the feeling of water just pouring down on my body.
Yeah.
My fiance always gets so mad at me. He's like, "You're steaming up the shower. There's going to be mold in our shower if you keep doing this." I take such a long shower. But it's like the one thing that what you're talking about as far as like selfishness, and I'm fighting that too, and long hot showers can be viewed as selfish, but it feels so good to me. So it's something that, like, the one thing that I allow myself to do, even though the water bill is slightly higher because of it, and I like knowingly do that, and feel grateful that I can do that, and enjoy it. I really do.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, I really do. 100%. What's your business, by the way?
I'm a web designer. I do web design and SEO.
Very cool. How long have you been doing that for?
Well, I worked for 2 coaches and did like business management for them and got trained in it. And so I was like doing the web design and SEO stuff for a while, but I took my business full time April of this year.
Very cool. Do you work predominantly with females or males too?
Mainly women.
Mainly women.
Yeah.
Cool. So if someone wanted to contact you for that, how would they know that you can do what they want you to do?
So the best way would just be to reach out and schedule a call with me. My website is sequoiacraig.com, but I'm also on Instagram and Facebook and all of those fun places as well.
SequoiaCraig.com. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. So I want to ask, what would be some advice? What's some advice you'd give to females right now that are kind of struggling with their home life?
Take time for you. Self-care and rest is powerful stuff. And like, I think through self-care comes like the voice of our souls. Like you hear yourself louder when you nurture yourself. It's like you're watering a tree. When you give the tree the nourishment that it needs, it grows. And so if you are telling yourself one thing, or deep down you want something, if you nurture yourself and if you do lots of self-care and give yourself space to feel good, you'll find that voice telling you what you want or what you need gets louder. And then it'll be easier to listen to it.
Absolutely. I agree with all of that 100%. Well, this has been fantastic. I so appreciate you coming on and sharing a little bit about your past and what you've been doing up to this point to kind of get over and strengthen yourself mentally and emotionally. Do you have any closing thoughts?
Just thank you so much, Sabrina. This was fabulous.
Yes, of course. No problem, girl. Well, listen, this has been so great. For those of you that are listening live now, thank you so much for hanging out with us. And I hope that you pulled some awesome actually insight on this. Hey, I wanted to ask you before we close up. We had talked about emotional sobriety with you. Can you kind of break that down before we close up?
Yes, I love this term. So emotional sobriety is a lot of what we've been talking about. It's when you start to feed your brain when it comes to emotions, rather than just being a crazy animalistic lunatic. So like doing the work and being able to reflect on, the things that are happening instead of just reacting. So that's like what is it? React versus respond, I think, or whatever. But anyway, so emotional sobriety is about having the space and creating the space in your head to consider and mull over and be expanded, if that makes sense. It's kind of, it's a kind of a woo-woo concept a little because it's not tangible, but like,
what would be the opposite of emotional sobriety?
That's a good question. So let's say let's say I'm walking down the street and something happens and I get activated. That would be the opposite. Whereas if I'm walking down the street and something happens, I notice that I get activated. I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting. I just got activated from that.
Yes. So being emotionally aware of how your mind, your emotions are working against you a lot of times.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Against you and making you out to be some crazy person that you're not a lot of times.
Right. Absolutely. And so just like being able to reflect on the things that we're feeling, and it's like the next level of emotional growth.
Yeah. 100%. I would agree with that. How long have you known that term for?
So the coaches I used to work for introduced it to me. So it's 3 years.
It's so crazy because I've literally never heard of it, but I have it in my list now. Like I keep a list of awesome terms that I appreciate, and it's now in there. I totally adore that. And I think the reason I'm so pulled to it is because I am actually sober. So I've been sober for probably 15, 16 years. So, the word sobriety in there, I was like, oh, this is so cool.
Yeah.
Like another way to be able to use that term.
Right.
Fantastic. Well, listen, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of how far you've come. And I feel so good knowing that you are available to your younger brothers and sisters. And, I certainly hope that as they get older, they kind of use you as a sounding board as far as, what their options are. Because a lot of times when you're younger and you're still at home, even though you quote unquote have choices and have options, you kind of don't.
Yeah.
So, I love that they have you to be able to kind of, text or reach out to here and there while they're kind of going through that. But I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. I love that you're in the Her Version community. I certainly hope to, have you on again in the future. And I love that you're already joining our discussions, roundtable discussions. So thank you for everything that you've given to this community. And yeah, for those of you that are out there that are listening now, if you need any help with designing or graphics or SEO with your websites, or if you're thinking about starting a business and you don't know anything about websites, reach out to Sequoia, and she's on Facebook. I'm sure she's on Insta. You said Insta, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. I'm sure all of the links are on her website down there. So thanks so much for joining us here on Her Version. If you have an amazing story to share of struggle to triumph, be sure to reach out to me here or at herversion.life. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire others. Do something awesome today. Much love.